Thanks for staying with us. So, in 2012, a certain Steve Oronsaye reported on public sector reforms, and he revealed that there are 541 statutory and non-statutory federal government parastatals, commissions, and agencies. However, President Tinubu recently, I think yesterday, directed full implementation of the Oronsaye report to cut the size of government. He has approved some reforms, meaning numerous agencies will be eliminated and others will be merged, all to restructure and cut cost of governance. Now, many have argued that this is not the first time any government or president is saying they're going to re-implement. For whatever reason, they kept setting up committees to review, to bring a white paper. We've been hearing that for years. But this president seemed to have taken the bull by the horn and gone straight into implementation. Now, joining us on the show is a fiscal transparency advocate and a firm believer in the power of open data. He's an entrepreneur and open data analyst. Welcome with us, Mr. Oluseun Onigbende. Good to have you on our show. I can't hear you. I think it's...
I say it's a pleasure being here once again. Thank you very, very much.
Good. Yes, we can hear you. So, I mean, for those of us who have a bit of knowledge of what's going on, many Nigerians are excited. Others are confused. They're just wondering, sorry?
Is he excited?
So many Nigerians are excited about the implementation of the report. Others are confused. They don't even know what it means. So we'd like you to help us to break it down so that the average Nigerian can understand. One of the things we do on this show is to break things down to the nucleus so that people have a better and crystal understanding of governmental issues. So let's start with, what does it really mean, this Oronsaye report?
Yeah, thank you so much. And so this Oronsaye report has been a household name. It's been there since 2012. This was a committee set up under the President Jonathan's administration to look at streamlining government agencies. At that time, there were around 547 government agencies, and they were asked to look into it.
Yeah.
I mean, that number has risen to almost 1,000 because new agencies, new entities have been created over the years. And it was just simply to look at duplication, to look at also if certain agencies need to stay. Also to look at even certain agencies need governing boards, because those are the things that also have significant implications on public cost. Even the Goodwill Jonathan administration reviewed at a white paper, but did not do it. There have been 5 reviews of the Oronsaye report, in my own understanding. Twice under Goodwill Jonathan, and twice even President Mohammed also looked at it, and there was a last-minute check again last year around the Oronsaye report that produced another white paper that was not made public. So when the news filtered in yesterday that the president asked that the Oronsaye report be implemented, I mean, the law jumped up. And why? Because some things just don't make sense. And if you look at the Nigerian budgeting structure, you find a whole lot of agencies that you can't understand. We have a National Boundary Commission, and we have a Borders Community Development Agency. We have a National Secondary School Commission, when most of the secondary school functions or capabilities are within the state government purview. We have the institution for trypanosomiasis and something like that. We still have the veterinary. So things needed to be subsumed, needed to be changed to a department under ministries. Some needed to be scrapped entirely. And I think I looked at the key agencies that the government has brought forward. It seems interesting. It seems exciting in some way. It looks like they are facing this out, because it looks like they have not touched the hard hitters that the Oronsaye report mentioned. The Oronsaye report was very bold in some extent. Like, he asked that the EFCC and the ICPC and the Code of Conduct Bureau should be merged to the National Anti-Corruption Commission. So I've never seen a recommendation that goes as bold as that. So but at least the ones that they have put forward, that sounds much more reasonable. Even though most of them are small agencies, when you look at terms of cost savings, they might not be that significant. But if you look at it, the rationale or just the basic thing, it looks like this is a good step forward in terms of rationalizing government costs.
Okay.
So I felt that you spoke my mind. There's a initial excitement. I had initial excitement about it, but it was very short-lived because we were not doing a full implementation as of the statement didn't say they were going to be implementing the entirety of what he recommended. So I wanted to find out from you, were you excited when you saw this information? And do you think it would really cut down our costs per se? Because I foresee that they will still retain most of the staff, just move them into another department.
I don't, it cost. There are two ways that I see cost. One is the symbolic part of cutting costs, and one, the substance of cutting costs. And a lot of people would say, reduce ministers. Yes, a lot of people would say, let us definitely reduce cost of travels, which are very important. But when you look at the entire overheads of government, it's still less than, it's around 400 billion. And you're talking about a budget of around 27 trillion naira. So your overhead is around 500 billion naira. So even if you cut that, that's not where your biggest changes are going to happen. My own view, the biggest changes that we're going to do in cutting cost of governance is procurement reform. As long as we procurement the same way we do it, which few organizations, few entities collude with civil servants to define what public procurement will cost, when we can figure out how much does it cost in the public market and how much should government pay for it, when we can't reconcile that properly. As long as those things exist, we will keep having a lot of fiscal imbalance, a lot of currency imbalance, currency exchange rate imbalance too, because a lot of this money gets changed into dollars at the end of the day. So it's something that the government needs to look at. For me, if we want to really cut costs, let's go and look at budget efficiency and procurement reform. That's number one. But it's also important that we do some symbolic things so that we can gather perception and we can also build solidarity with Nigerians. I mean, this is not the easiest of times for Nigerians. Like I mentioned, if you look at some of these agencies, they are not significant. The reality is that Nigeria's spending is not that big. You know, if you look at us, we're a country of 200 million people. Federal government at that level is spending 27 trillion naira. We are even devaluing the currency, so it even makes the size of the budget, if you put it in dollar, absolutely worse. So, in my own view, we need to spend more, you know, but spend much more efficiently. So, if we are looking at some of these agencies, I mean, if we save 10 billion naira, we'll be trying. I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, it's symbolic that because some of the things there are just it's just reason. For example, we have an agency called National Agricultural Development Agency, NADLA, and it's under the presidency. I'm wondering, if you have an Agricultural Lands Development Agency and you put it under the presidency, why? It should be under the Ministry of Agriculture.
All right, let me get a few more questions in for you.
Yes. So two agencies that I did not see there is the Pilgrims Commission, so the National Hajj Commission and the Christian Pilgrimage Commission. These have been criticized commissions that, you know, people do not think government should continue with. Also, it seems like the fear of NLC is the beginning of wisdom. It is said that nobody will be losing their jobs because of this collapse of agencies. So are we really efficiently doing this, or, you know?
Yeah, so, I mean, if we want to efficiently do, let me explain something a little bit. So, the biggest chunk of Nigeria's personnel costs, around 74% of it, is just within 5 ministries, which is education, health, defense, the police, and also other internal security, which is like immigrations, customs, and prisons, and the rest. So if you're not tampering with those ones, to be honest with you, you might not be able to shrink this personnel size in a significant way. That's something we also first have to understand. It doesn't just mean that there aren't a whole lot of waste on the other 26%, you know, in terms of all these small agencies, as one might call them, in terms of personnel costs. And things like the Pilgrimage Commission, it's huge that, I mean, government takes a step back from that. The personnel cost for those agencies might be less than 5 billion naira, but it's part of something. And you also said about perception that some things, in terms of principle, should not exist. I mean, what's the government business with pilgrimage. If you want to go on pilgrimage as an attestation of your faith or a completion of your faith, you should just do that as your own personal prerogative. Nigeria does not have the resources, to put into things like that. So I agree, but there's also the political economy of things, because I've seen people say the political consequences of that for politicians is greater than the economic cost when you look at it in that sense. But I think in the time of austerity that we have right now, these are the things that should just significantly go, because it helps in the perception that government is thinking that every single kobo, every single cent, every single naira matters to them.
Yeah, so I would like to hear your thoughts on what you think informed the president to, give this this sort of directive so that the Oronsaye report will be implemented. However, though not, they don't want it to be implemented completely. I would like to hear what you think about the move for that, and also why we're not looking at implementing the majority of what was recommended in that report, because this is more like just one aspect of the report that we are focusing on.
I think we will pay attention. It's better that it is faced this way. I also understand, because to scrap some agencies or to merge them, you need to go through a long legislative process. Okay. Let's forget that some of these things are backed by hearts, and they have governing boards. Even for cessation, there are a lot of rules and processes that guide them. So I think they have taken the ones that are the low-hanging fruits and the quick wins that they can find in some sort of way. So I think that's what they have done. So we will have to wait, maybe after they have been able to deliver this, maybe in 6 months or 6 weeks, because there will still be pushback. I mean, let's not lie to ourselves. Even though the president has spoken about this, certain interests will go to the National Assembly, certain interests will move around and say, why do we need to do this? I mean, for example, I asked, when we're looking at the budget, there was a Border Communities Development Agency, and they had a whole lot of projects. And I was asking myself, why do we have to execute projects through a Border Communities Development Agency? It should be a policy institution. If you want to do a road in a border community, do it through the Ministry of Works. If you want to build a school, they do it through the Ministry of Education. But a lot of things that you see in the budget has also become a procurement dispensing opportunity. So I think that's one way I see that cost will be significant. And why the president is doing this, he needs to rebuild his political capital. That's where I see this.
Exactly. That was where I was going to. Because I was going to talk about that the buying the goodwill. Because some people, when we look at this decision, we think, okay, there are hard decisions. And there are softer decisions to buy back trust, buy back perception. To change thinking of Nigerians, to say, okay, this government is working. Maybe they are doing some things that others have found difficult. They've been bold, brave enough to take some decisions that others haven't been able to. So do you think this is just one of those things to buy goodwill of the people?
Yeah, most definitely. It's one of the good things to buy the goodwill. I mean, the government wants to do this, but it has not gone all the way. So, like I said, that's taken the low-hanging fruit, which is important, and which we will see where this will go along the way, because at the end of the day, we'll do the measurements. When we look at some of these agencies, we're looking at the data already in budget. How much do these agencies save the government? Let's also not forget, see if they're not sacking anybody. So maybe it's only the overheads that they might be some extent reducing. The capital item attached to some of these agencies are already in the budget. So except the government decides not to implement them. So in some sort of way, it just makes rational sense to do this. Some things in terms of how we put them in structure is not supposed to be. But it's up for the government to buy back some trust, because Nigerians require that at this moment.
So the government is beyond, the executive. We still have this democracy is not cheap. We still have these lawmakers to go back to. Right now, you were talking earlier, you were saying some people will go to the National Assembly, some people will, try to resist this, cost-cutting measure. How do we bring in the National Assembly, considering that they are doing some amendments with the Constitution right now?
To bring in the National Assembly, it has to be some, back and lobbying from the executive, and he's also, and I just said, I don't think there's a lot of political capital to be expended here because if Oronsaye said merge ICPC and EFCC, and this government chooses to do that, I think that's one that would raise a lot of eyebrows. Most of these agencies, in some certain times, are not as small. And I see, some of them are even being merged, maybe in those nomenclature, they will still, they may be their names on the inside. So I think, to some extent, the government would have to speak to his, since the APC is the president and the leadership of National Assembly, it should be much more easier than I think. And also, the National Assembly has to be helpful here. Nigerians need something to hold on to in terms of government also being sensitive to their plight. So I don't think the law of political capital to be explained here by executive, because some of the things, there will be a bit of pushback no matter what we think. So I don't think everything that has been said will go through. Sometimes in another few weeks, certain things will be backtracked in some sort of way. Okay. And some things are also even faulty. So like, for example, the NACA, which is the National Action for Control of HIV and AIDS, for AIDS, the National Agency for Control of AIDS, it's been merged with NCDC. I don't think that should have happened. That's a public health issue, and I think the HIV/AIDS needs its own agency specifically tied to that. So, if we bring it back to be a unit under the Ministry of Health, I think that's even much more appropriate than lumping it with a public health policy and surveillance agency. So in some sort of way, I think some reflection will also still happen. But like I said, we have not done the hard things. So maybe the political capital here is not still huge as we think.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think that there will still be a few wins. I know that you said that the overhead cost isn't going to change much because nobody is being fired. But if it's no longer an agency, if it's now merged, they no longer have heads. And usually the heads attract more in terms of in payroll. So it's no longer, and then the heads no longer approve or have a budget. It is now subject to the ministry they've been merged with. Do you foresee procurement shrinkage if we are merging, if we continue with this merge that will be substantial as opposed to the overhead in terms of salary?
There has to be that procurement shrinkage. Because if you look at one of the mistakes of the current president, for me, is the 2024 budget. I remember that he left Lagos on January 1 and immediately landed in Abuja that same day or second. He signed the budget. There was no pushback to the legislature. So by the time you analyze that budget properly, there were too many items that were incited by the legislature that I feel is not the best interest of Nigerians. A whole lot of people are just looking after themselves or looking after their own political mileage. So I think a whole lot of procurement reform, which is where I'm looking up to the Minister of Finance, Mr. Wale, to look into the budget and to look at those items. What am I going to prioritize? Because this is the same thing the last government did. Put everything in the budget, spend all the money, the ones that were reasonable, the ones that were unreasonable, borrowed for it, printed for it, These are all sorts, and at the same way, it looks like too much effort, but the impact is not significant. So I think even if some of those procurement don't happen, it's for the Nigerians' gain, because a whole lot of the federal government of Nigeria is not focused. When we hear things like the Lagos-Calabar road, those are the things the federal government of Nigeria should focus on. When we hear like vitalization of tertiary institutions, that's what we should focus on. Not building 5 million naira solar panel borehole, not building 2 million naira street lights. Those are the things, and those are where you now see a lot of them being inserted in the budget by the National Assembly. So through some of these agencies. So if this is also time to get a grip on what exactly are these agencies supposed to do. So if it's time to save cost on those sides, it's a welcome situation, because I look at the 2024 budget and I feel like there's a whole lot of error and there's a lot of mistakes in that regard.
All right, let me go on a short break. When we come back, we continue this conversation and take a few calls. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.